So tell me more about you. Like,
In what context?
yeah, well, how about like, I know you didn't grow up in Colorado.
I am not a native.
Okay,
I
so
am
where'd you
not a
grow
native.
up?
I grew up in Manhattan, New York.
Oh, well, tell me about that. What's that like to
Uh,
actually
um,
grow up as a Manhattan kid?
well, you're groomed to be an a-hole, pretty much.
Really?
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of like, just all of us are like that out there.
Yeah,
I actually used to say evil is emanating from beneath.
really.
This is my thing. When I travel, they'd be like, yo, you're from New York, huh? I'd be like, yeah, sorry, forgive me, right?
Right.
And I like the Giants, so double forgive me.
Oh, uh-oh.
The New York Giants of all teams. But yeah, I think that it's so many people, right? Because I've traveled to San Diego. I lived in Mexico for 2 years, and then here for about 4 to 5 years, and there's not as many people, so you can actually, and then there's not a lot of high rises. So like if you go on a block, there's homes,
Right.
families. There's only a certain amount of people in
Right,
those
right.
homes, and depending on how long the families have been there, they create this kind of relationship
Like
with
community.
their neighbors. Yeah, a community. In New York, you can be on a block that can have 2 high rises, 30 floors each, 10 apartments on each floor. We don't know who's living in those apartments. Everybody's shopping at the same grocery store.
Right.
Everybody's taking the same public transportation. So what I have realized is that I don't think that we are a-holes or mean people for no reason. I think it's a defense mechanism. And how I prove this out is I've had people who have come to New York while I was living there from other places, and we become friends. And they go from waving at everybody, giving to every homeless person,
Right.
talking to everybody. It's being really open, which is the culture from wherever Midwest town they're from or wherever they're from,
Right.
which is a lower volume of people. And then in about a month or so, they start stepping over homeless people, not giving any money to anybody,
Right.
not talking, keeping their head down, and creating this New York demeanor.
Well, and is it about like kind of like, when you're like when I'm on a very crowded, like bus, even at the Denver airport, most of us have been there, and when there's nobody on the train, then people have a tendency more to be a little friendlier,
Right.
Make eye contact. Everybody's got space. But when you're crammed in there, I mean, literally everyone's looking at the ceiling and just trying to keep to themselves because you don't have that personal space bubble that we're all comfortable with. And, and there's some of us who are extroverts and some of us, get our energy from interactions and others who are introverts, and nobody's like 100% either way.
Right.
But I think we all need some amount of space at, any given time.
I
And
think
so,
you're right.
You know?
You're not going to get it in New York.
Yeah, well, especially not the physical space as much.
Right. Unless you
so-
create that safe space for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's also a place where, like I've noticed, I love New York City, and
How many times have you been?
Oh, I don't know, dozens, I would say.
Really? For
Yeah.
what?
Various things. Like, we like to do cruises, sort of. We'll fly in and out of New York to do
Okay.
cruises out of, like, Jersey. There's
Got
a
it. Yep,
Jersey
yep,
cruise.
yep.
And then I actually worked in upstate New York right after I graduated from high school at a girls' camp. And so that was the first time I went to New York City. Actually, I think I went to New York City when I was a little baby, but at like 2-3 years old.
Yeah.
I guess I'm a baby toddler. Because my grandmother and my mom's oldest sister lived there.
From what part? Upstate?
I don't really know. No,
Okay.
in New York City.
Okay,
but
in the
I don't,
city.
I don't know what part. So my
Manhattan or just one of the boroughs?
I don't
even know?
I don't
Okay.
even know. Here's what I do know. So
Yeah.
my mother's mom was a World War II bride, and she came over to the United States from France. When U.S. soldiers and sailors came in and liberated
Mm-hmm.
Paris. So she moved here and went to live at Norfolk, which was a far cry from Paris. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
And so my grandmother ultimately, and this was, the early 50s, left. And, and she had a daughter from a prior relationship, which is also pretty avant-garde for that time frame, but left my mom and her younger sister with their father's grandmother, or their father's mom, their grandma, and just went to New York City.
Wow.